Welcome to Miss Scarlett. Subscribe and don't miss out on Patreon. Have fun!
In the quiet solitude of the bathroom, steam kissed the mirror, distorting the reflection of a ritual about to begin. The air hummed with anticipation as a hand, steady yet trembling with intent, reached for the rose-hued powder brush. Each feature was enhanced with careful strokes, a sweep of mascara, a hint of eyeshadow, and a subtle gloss that beckoned. Time stood still, an ally in this clandestine affair. As the transformation neared completion, deep breaths fogged the mirror once more, this time providing a hazy shield of secrecy. Then, with purposeful steps, the figure emerged, their sock-clad feet whispering against the hallway floor, destined for uncharted territory beyond their own confines. Jason hesitated at his sister's doorway, the familiar guilt and exhilaration battling within his chest. Megan wouldn't be home from college for another month. She'd never know. The closet door slid open with a familiar sound that had become something of a comfort over these past months. His fingers trailed across fabrics, cotton, polyester, and, finally, the silk blouses hanging in neat rows. Today, he selected a cream-colored sweater with delicate pearl buttons that Megan had forgotten when she left for her second semester. The cashmere felt impossibly soft against his skin as he slipped it over his head, careful not to smudge his makeup. The black skirt came next, falling just above his knees. In the full-length mirror mounted on Megan's closet door, Jason studied his transformation. At 24, his frame was lean but masculine, too masculine, despite the careful contouring he'd learned from countless YouTube tutorials. Still, something about the outfit made his heart race with recognition. In these stolen moments, everything felt right. An unexpected sound downstairs sent panic shooting through his body. The front door closing. Footsteps. Jason, you home, sweetie? His mother wasn't supposed to be back until dinner. The calendar on the refrigerator had clearly marked her book club meeting until 5. It was barely 2.
I'm upstairs,
he called out, voice cracking as he frantically began unbuttoning the sweater. Just getting ready to shower. Take your time. Book club got canceled. Martha's down with that flu that's going around. Jason's fingers fumbled with the buttons, heart hammering against his ribs. He'd been so careful these past months, timing these moments perfectly when no one would be home. The makeup would take precious minutes to remove, minutes he didn't have with his mother already climbing the stairs. The door to Megan's room wasn't fully closed. He'd been careless. Honey, did you borrow my... The words died on his mother's lips as she pushed the door open. Jason froze, half out of the sweater, face fully made up, skirt still in place. The expression on his mother's face was unreadable.
Mom, I can explain,
he started, but his voice failed him. What explanation could possibly suffice? Instead of the shock or disgust he expected, his mother's face softened. She stepped into the room, closed the door behind her, and sat on the edge of Megan's bed. How long? She asked quietly. Jason couldn't meet her eyes.
A few months?
I thought so. She smoothed a wrinkle from the comforter. I noticed makeup on my blue sweater you borrowed for that job interview, and on Megan's cream one too. Heat flooded Jason's face. He'd been so careful to wash the sweaters, but clearly not careful enough.
I'm sorry,
he whispered, arms crossed protectively over his chest, still partially covered by the sweater.
For what? Borrowing without asking or for enjoying how you look in them?
The gentleness in her tone made his eyes sting with unshed tears.
Both. Either. I don't know.
His mother patted the bed beside her. After a moment's hesitation, Jason sat, acutely aware of how the skirt draped across his thighs. You know, she began, your father and I always knew you were different, special. From the time you were little, you never quite fit into the boxes people tried to put you in.
Dad would hate this,
Jason mumbled.
Your father loved you more than anything in this world. He would have wanted you to be happy, whatever that looked like.
She reached out and took his hand. And so do I. The tears came then, spilling down his carefully contoured cheeks, leaving tracks through the foundation.
I don't know what's wrong with me,
he confessed.
There's nothing wrong with you, sweetheart. Nothing at all.
She squeezed his hand. Have you thought about... do you feel like you're in the wrong body? Jason considered this. I don't know. Sometimes it's confusing. I just know that when I dress like this, I feel complete. Like I'm finally seeing myself clearly. His mother nodded thoughtfully. You know, I've been saving something. I wasn't sure when the right time would be, but I think it might be now. She stood, straightening her blouse. Finish getting dressed, properly dressed, the way you want to. Then come to my room. She left, closing the door softly behind her, leaving Jathan stunned. Of all the scenarios he'd imagined if he was ever discovered, his mother's quiet acceptance had never been among them. With trembling hands, he rebuttoned the cream sweater, adjusted the skirt, and wiped away the tear tracks with a tissue, salvaging what he could of his makeup. The person in the mirror looked scared, but somehow lighter, as if a heavy weight had begun to lift. In his mother's bedroom, he found her rummaging through the back of her closet. She emerged with a garment bag, laying it carefully across the bed. I bought this almost a year ago, she explained, unzipping the bag. When I saw it, I just knew it would be perfect. She pulled back the protective covering to reveal a cocktail dress in the softest shade of pink, with delicate beading across the bodice. I don't understand, Jason said, staring at the dress. Why would you? A mother knows her children, she said simply. Even the parts they try to hide. I noticed how you looked at dresses in shop windows, how you'd linger over Megan's fashion magazines. I didn't know when or if you'd ever feel safe enough to share this part of yourself with me, but I wanted to be ready when you did. Jason approached the bed slowly, reaching out to touch the satin fabric. It's beautiful. Try it on, his mother encouraged. I'll wait downstairs if you'd prefer privacy.
No,
he said quickly.
Stay, please.
She nodded, turning to face the window while Jason changed. The dress slipped over his head like a whisper, settling against his body as if made for him. The fit wasn't perfect, a bit loose in the chest, snug at the waist, but as he smoothed the fabric down his sides, something clicked into place. Can I look now? His mother asked. Yes. She turned, and her eyes filled with tears. Oh, darling, you're breathtaking. Self-consciously, Jason turned toward the full-length mirror on her closet door. The person who stared back was both familiar and strange. His own features softened by makeup, his body transformed by the cut of the dress, his blonde hair brushing against his shoulders in a way that suddenly seemed right, rather than just overdue for a haircut. It needs a necklace, his mother decided, opening her jewelry box. She selected a simple silver chain with a small heart pendant. This was your grandmother's. She fastened it around his neck, her fingers cool against his skin. The pendant nestled into the hollow of his throat, catching the light. "Thank you," Jason whispered, unable to express the enormity of what this moment meant. "What do you want me to call you?" she asked. "When you're dressed like this, I mean." The question caught him off guard. He hadn't thought that far ahead, had never imagined being able to express this side of himself openly. "I don't know yet," he admitted. "Can I think about it?" "Of course." She brushed a strand of blonde hair behind his ear. "Take all the time you need, but I think J might work for now. It's close enough that it won't feel strange, but different enough to honor this part of you." "J," he repeated, testing the name. It felt right, simplified, softer. "I'd like that." His mother smiled, her eyes crinkling at the corners. "Well then, Jay, why don't you twirl for me? Let's see how that dress moves." Feeling suddenly shy but also strangely emboldened, Jay did a slow turn, the dress flaring slightly at the hips. The fabric rustled around his legs, creating a sound that was oddly comforting. "Beautiful," his mother affirmed. "Though we might need to look into shoes. My feet are at least 2 sizes smaller than yours." A laugh bubbled up from somewhere deep inside. "One problem at a time, Mom." They spent the rest of the afternoon talking. Really talking, in a way they hadn't since before his father's death 3 years earlier. Jay explained how he'd first started experimenting with Megan's clothes during a particularly lonely night, how the simple act of trying on a blouse had sparked something inside him that he couldn't ignore.
"I'm not sure what this means yet,"
he confessed.
"If I'm transgender or just exploring a different side of myself."
"You don't need to have all the answers today," his mother assured him.
Or ever, really. Some people spend their whole lives discovering who they are.
As evening approached, Jay reluctantly changed back into jeans and a t-shirt, washing away the makeup that had smudged throughout their tearful conversations. When he emerged from the bathroom, his mother was waiting with a notebook. "I thought we might make a list," she explained. "Things you might need, if you want to continue this journey." Together, they compiled a shopping list. Makeup proper for his skin tone, a starter wardrobe, shoes, and resources. Books, support groups, names of therapists specializing in gender identity. "We could go shopping this weekend," she suggested. "There's that new mall in Riverside that might give us more privacy than the one here." Jay nodded, grateful beyond words for her practicality, her acceptance, her love. That night, lying in bed, he touched the spot where the necklace had rested against his throat and allowed himself, for the first time, to imagine a future where he could be fully himself, whatever that might mean. The weekend couldn't come fast enough. The Riverside Mall sprawled across 3 levels, its high glass ceiling letting in streams of natural light that bounced off polished floors. Jay's stomach twisted with nerves as they parked the car. "Having second thoughts?" his mother asked, noticing his hesitation. "What if someone recognizes me?" His hometown was 30 miles away, but the fear remained. "Then they recognize you," she said firmly, "and we hold our heads high. But," she added, reaching into her purse, "I thought you might want these." She handed him a pair of oversized sunglasses and a silky blue scarf.
"For confidence, not hiding.
Jay took them gratefully, arranging the scarf around his neck and slipping on the sunglasses. Even these small accessories made him feel different, freer somehow. Their first stop was a department store cosmetics counter where a cheerful consultant with bright pink hair welcomed them. "My daughter needs a proper foundation match," his mother explained smoothly, the word daughter sending a jolt through Jay's system. "And perhaps a tutorial on everyday makeup." If the consultant noticed Jay's prominent Adam's apple or the faint shadow of stubble beneath his carefully applied drugstore foundation, she gave no indication. "Absolutely. Let's start with skin prep. You have gorgeous bone structure. Those cheekbones are to die for." For the next hour, Jay learned proper techniques for contouring his jawline, softening his features, and highlighting his best attributes. The consultant, whose name tag read Becca, was professional and kind, treating him with the same attention she'd give any customer. "Your skin tone is neutral with warm undertones," she explained, testing various foundation shades along his jawline. "And with this blonde hair, you can really play with cool-toned eyeshadows for contrast." Jay caught his mother's eye in the mirror, both of them smiling at this casual validation of his appearance. By the time they left the counter, loaded with carefully selected products, Jay's confidence had grown exponentially. Their next stop was a boutique specializing in women's clothing. The salesperson, a statuesque woman with silver-streaked hair, approached them with a practiced smile. "Can I help you find something today?" Jay's courage faltered, but his mother placed a reassuring hand on his arm. "My child is exploring a new style," she explained, her voice matter-of-fact. "We need a few basic pieces to start building a wardrobe." The salesperson's smile never wavered. "Wonderful! Let's find some things that work for your body type. Are we thinking casual wear, office attire, or perhaps some special occasion pieces?"
"A bit of everything," Jay found himself saying. "I'm starting from scratch."
"Even better! A blank canvas." She assessed Jay with a professional eye. "You have a long torso and great legs. A-line skirts will be flattering, and wrap dresses are forgiving while you figure out your style. Let's pull some options." What followed was a whirlwind of fabrics, colors, and styles. Jay discovered that he preferred simpler silhouettes, pencil skirts that hit just below the knee, boat-neck tops that balanced his broader shoulders, and dresses with defined waistlines. The pink cocktail dress his mother had given him was apparently right on target for his body type. In the fitting room, each new outfit revealed another facet of the person emerging from behind years of conformity. A forest green wrap dress made his eyes look more intensely blue. A cream-colored blouse with delicate pin tucks reminded him of vintage photographs of his grandmother in her youth. "How are we doing in there?" the salesperson called.
"Could I—"
Jay hesitated, then continued.
"Could I try some jeans? Women's cut?" "Of course. What size are you in men's? We can convert from there."
By the end of their shopping expedition, they'd assembled a modest but versatile wardrobe. 3 dresses, 2 skirts, several tops, a pair of women's jeans that somehow made his legs look endless, and a soft cardigan in pale blue that his mother insisted brought out the highlights in his blonde hair. Their final stop was a shoe store, where Jay discovered the challenge of finding women's shoes in his size. The selection was limited, but they managed to find a pair of simple black flats and ankle boots with a low heel that were surprisingly comfortable.
"These will get you started,"
his mother said, as they loaded their purchases into the car.
"We can order more online once you have a better sense of your style and sizing."
The drive home was quiet, both of them processing the day's events. Jay kept touching the shopping bags, reassuring himself that this was real.
"Mom?"
he finally said as they turned onto their street. "Yes, dear." "Thank you. For everything. For not—" His voice caught. "For not making me feel like a freak." She pulled into their driveway and turned off the engine, turning to face him fully. "You listen to me. You are my child. You are perfect exactly as you are, whatever that means today, whatever that means tomorrow. And I will fight anyone who tries to make you feel otherwise." That night, after carefully hanging each new garment in his closet, Jay stood before his mirror in the forest green wrap dress, his face carefully made up with his new products, his blonde hair styled with more intention than he'd ever given it before. The person staring back at him seemed to glow from within. For the first time, he allowed himself to think the word that had been hovering at the edges of his consciousness for months. Transgender. Was that what this was? The relief he felt in these clothes, with this presentation, suggested something deeper than mere preference. But the word carried such weight, such permanence. He wasn't ready to declare it. Not yet. But he was ready to explore it. The next morning, Jay woke early, before his mother. Making a decision, he showered, carefully shaved his face as closely as possible, and applied the makeup techniques Becca had taught him. He chose the women's jeans and a simple blue top, finishing the look with the flats and his mother's scarf. When he entered the kitchen, his mother looked up from her coffee, momentary surprise giving way to a warm smile. "Good morning," she said, as if nothing was unusual.
"Sleep well?" "Better than I have in years,"
Jay admitted, pouring himself a cup of coffee. They fell into their usual morning routine, except everything felt different, charged with new possibility. His mother worked on a crossword puzzle while Jay scrolled through his phone, researching resources his mother had suggested.
"I think I'd like to talk to someone,"
he said after a while.
"A therapist, I mean. Someone who specializes in gender issues."
His mother nodded approvingly.
"I think that's a wise decision. I found a few names."
She slid a piece of paper across the table with 3 names and numbers written in her neat handwriting. "These all came highly recommended in the support group forums I found online." Jay stared at his mother. "You've been researching support groups?" "Of course," she said, as if it were the most natural thing in the world. "I want to understand what you're experiencing, how best to support you." She hesitated. "There's a parent group that meets twice monthly. I thought I might attend." Tears pricked at Jay's eyes, threatening to ruin his carefully applied mascara. "I don't deserve you." "Nonsense," she said briskly, though her own eyes had grown suspiciously bright. "Now, I was thinking we might try growing out your hair a bit more. Your father's sister had the most beautiful, thick hair. You seem to have inherited that gene." As the weeks passed, Jay's exploration deepened. He scheduled an appointment with Dr. Martinez, a therapist specializing in gender identity issues. Their first session was primarily information gathering, but even that felt momentous. "Gender exists on a spectrum," Dr. Martinez explained, her office a calming space of blues and greens. "Some people identify strongly with the gender assigned at birth. Others feel a complete disconnect. Many fall somewhere in between or move along that spectrum at different points in their lives."
"And how do you know?"
Jay asked, voicing the question that had kept him awake many nights. "How do you know if you're truly transgender or just exploring gender expression?" Dr. Martinez smiled kindly. That's a question only you can answer, and it may take time. But typically, transgender individuals experience what we call gender dysphoria, discomfort or distress related to a mismatch between their assigned gender and how they feel inside.
I think I've felt that,
Jay admitted. Not always, but increasingly over the years. Like wearing clothes that never quite fit right, no matter how many times you change. That's a common description. She nodded. Let's talk about when you feel most comfortable, most like yourself. When do those clothes seem to fit? By the end of that first session, Jay had more questions than answers, but also a sense of direction. Doctor, Martinez provided reading materials and suggested keeping a journal to track feelings about gender in different situations. At home, Jay's feminine expression became his daily norm. His mother had taken to naturally using feminine pronouns when they were alone, which felt startlingly right. His blonde hair grew longer, now brushing past his shoulders, and he'd learned to style it in ways that softened his face. The real test came when Megan announced she'd be coming home for a long weekend.
Should I tell her beforehand?
Jay asked his mother the night before Megan's arrival.
That's entirely up to you, sweetheart, but your sister loves you, and she's always been more progressive than either of us.
Jay considered this. I think I want her to see me. Really see me. Then we can talk. His mother squeezed his hand. Whatever you decide, I'm right here. The next day, Jay spent extra time on his appearance, choosing a navy blue dress with white piping that his mother said gave him a classic look. His makeup was subtle but intentional, his growing confidence evident in the precise application. His blonde hair fell in soft waves around his face, highlighted by the sunlight streaming through the windows. When the front door opened, Jay was sitting in the living room, heart hammering in his chest. Hello? I'm home! Megan's cheerful voice called from the entryway. In here? Their mother called back. Footsteps approached, and then Megan appeared in the doorway, her suitcase forgotten in the hall. She froze, staring at Jay with wide eyes.
Hey, Meg,
Jay said softly. Megan looked from Jay to their mother, then back to Jay. Jayceon? Jay, actually. Just Jay now. A beat of silence stretched between them. Then, to Jay's astonishment, Megan's face broke into a wide smile. Well, damn, sis. You look better in that dress than I ever would. The tension in the room dissolved instantly. Jay stood, uncertain, and Megan crossed the space between them, wrapping him in a fierce hug. You should have told me, she whispered. I would have shared my clothes willingly instead of you sneaking into my room. Jay pulled back, surprised. You knew? Megan rolled her eyes fondly. Of course I knew. You always put things back slightly wrong. Plus, my makeup kept getting rearranged. She studied Jay's face. But I had no idea you'd look this good. Seriously, your contour game is strong. Tears threatened again, but this time Jay let them fall, not caring about the mascara. I was so scared to tell you. Well, that was silly, Megan declared, flopping onto the couch. Now tell me everything. When did this start? Are you transitioning fully? And most importantly, where did you get those shoes? They're fabulous. The weekend became an unexpected celebration. Megan, true to her word, opened her suitcase and insisted Jay try on her newest clothes. They stayed up late talking, Megan offering insights from her diverse friend group at college, several of whom were transgender or non-binary. There's this amazing clinic near campus, she told Jay as they painted each other's nails a matching shade of coral. They specialize in transgender healthcare, hormone therapy, referrals for surgery if that's something you're considering. The works. Jay paused, the nail polish brush hovering over Megan's pinky. I think I am. Considering it, I mean. Megan nodded seriously. Whatever you decide, I'm here for it. But fair warning, if you get better boobs than me, I'm going to be seriously jealous. Jay's laughter bubbled up, genuine and free. For the first time, the future didn't seem frightening. It seemed full of possibility. The weeks after Megan's visit brought rapid changes. With Dr. Martinez's guidance, Jay began the process of legal name change, choosing Jada, an evolution of Jayceon that honored his past while embracing his future. Jada! His mother tried out the name, her smile approving. It suits you. The conversation with his employer was more nerve-wracking, but ultimately successful. As a graphic designer working primarily from home, the transition's impact on his professional life was minimal in practice, though emotionally significant. We value your work, his supervisor had assured him during their video call. Your gender identity doesn't change that. Just let HR know what name and pronouns you prefer in communications. 6 months after that first afternoon in the pink cocktail dress, Jada sat in an endocrinologist's office, listening carefully as the doctor explained hormone replacement therapy. Estrogen will cause gradual feminization, Dr. Wu explained. Breast development, softening of the skin, redistribution of body fat to create more feminine contours. It won't change your bone structure, your height, the width of your shoulders, but many patients find the overall effect quite transformative. And the risks? Jada's mother asked. She'd insisted on accompanying her to this appointment, a clipboard of neatly organized questions in hand. Dr. Wu detailed the potential side effects, from the mild to the serious. It's also important to understand that some changes are permanent, even if you discontinue hormone therapy, and fertility will likely be affected. Jada nodded, having researched extensively. I've considered that. I don't think I want biological children, but I've looked into banking options just in case. Very prudent. Dr. Wu approved. Have you considered an anti-androgen as well? Blocking testosterone can enhance the feminizing effects of estrogen. By the end of the appointment, Jada had prescriptions in hand and a follow-up scheduled for 1 month later. In the car, she stared at the pharmacy bag in her lap, overwhelmed by the magnitude of this step. Second thoughts? Her mother asked gently. No. Jada realized, with quiet certainty. No second thoughts. Just amazement that this is really happening. Her mother covered Jada's hand with her own. It's happening because you're brave enough to live authentically. That's something to be proud of. The physical changes from hormone therapy were gradual but profound. Soft breast tissue began to develop within months. Her skin grew softer, facial features subtly rounder, body hair thinned dramatically. But the emotional changes were even more significant. A sense of alignment, of rightness, that Jada had never experienced before. Her blonde hair, now grown well past her shoulders, became a point of pride, the soft waves framing a face that looked increasingly feminine in the mirror. She found herself studying old photographs of her father's side of the family, noticing for the first time her resemblance to her paternal grandmother as a young woman. The same bow-shaped lips, the same slight dimple in the right cheek. 1 year after beginning her transition, Jada stood in her bedroom, preparing for a special dinner. Her mother had insisted on marking the anniversary, inviting Megan home from college for the occasion. The pink cocktail dress, the very first dress her mother had given her, hung on the closet door. It fit differently now, hugging newly developed curves, the neckline filled out in a way that no longer required padding or clever contouring. As she slipped it over her head, Jada marveled at how far she'd come. The person in the mirror was unmistakably feminine, not just in clothing or makeup, but in essence. Her once angular jawline had softened. Her blonde hair fell in styled waves around her shoulders. Even her gestures had changed, no longer consciously practiced, but naturally fluid. A knock at the door interrupted her reflection.
Almost ready?
Her mother called.
Just finishing up,
Jada answered, applying a final touch of lip gloss. Downstairs, she found the dining room transformed. Candles flickered on the table, which was set with the good china they used only for holidays. Megan, home for the weekend, had decorated with flowers and a hand-lettered sign reading, "Happy Re-Birthday."
Too corny?
Megan asked, noticing Jada's gaze on the sign. Perfect, Jada assured her, throat tight with emotion. Dinner was a celebration not just of the past year, but of the journey still unfolding. They talked about future possibilities, whether Jada might want facial feminization surgery someday, maybe, but not urgently, whether she'd consider moving to a more progressive city, perhaps after saving more money, whether she was ready to start dating, a terrifying but increasingly appealing prospect. "I have something for you," her mother said as they finished dessert. She handed Jada a small velvet box. It seemed appropriate. Inside was a delicate gold necklace with a butterfly pendant, its wings inlaid with mother-of-pearl that caught the candlelight. "It's beautiful," Jada breathed. "Metamorphosis," her mother explained, helping fasten it around her neck. "The ultimate transformation." "Plus," Megan added with her characteristic bluntness, "you were kind of in a cocoon for most of your life. Now you're finally flying." Jada touched the pendant where it rested against her skin, just above the neckline of the pink dress where her journey had begun. "I never imagined this," she admitted. "A year ago, I was terrified you'd walk in and find me in your clothes. Now look at us." "Now look at you," her mother corrected gently. "Living as your true self. I couldn't be prouder." Later that night, after Megan had returned to her friend's house where she was staying, and her mother had gone to bed, Jada stood at her bedroom window, looking out at the star-filled sky. The butterfly pendant glinted in the moonlight, a tangible reminder of how far she'd come. She thought about the frightened person who had tried on his sister's sweater in secret, desperate for some connection to the self buried beneath years of conformity. That version of her still existed somewhere inside. The memories, the struggles, the journey that had led to this moment. But now, Jada stood in her own truth, the pink dress a symbol not of disguise, but of revelation. The road ahead would have its challenges. There always would be in a world still learning to embrace difference, but she would face them as her authentic self, surrounded by the unconditional love that had made her transformation possible. With one last look at the stars, Jada turned from the window, the satin of her dress rustling softly as she moved. Tomorrow would bring new adventures, new challenges, new joys, and she would meet them all as Jada, daughter, sister, woman, at last, wholly herself under the vast, accepting sky.
Thanks for watching, my girlies. Be sure to check out Patreon for more.